My name is Oscar Ramos, and I was part of Group 1.
Hi, I'm Caroline Branson with Academic Group 1.
So today I'm going to show you how to make this access database. So this is the finished product of what I did, and I created three main tabs that contain the information of different classes. And in those classes I had their ID, their name, section number, what term, and how many hours, credit hours that term or that class is. And I had a student tab with their student ID, last name, first name, and then student classes with an ID, class ID, student ID, and hours studied. And the next thing that you have to create are relationships between those three tables. And then what we did is we created queries. And these queries brought together different fields from each of these tables and then answered a question for us. So the first question that we have, well, first let me show you how to create those three tabs. So we're going to create a new file, and we're going to select a blank database. And we're going to create that. Yes, saved. Okay, anyways. So the first thing we have to do is create the three tabs and name them, or three tables, I'm sorry, and name them. So you go over here to the left and you rename. Oh, you can't rename while it's open. Okay. So close. Oh. So create a table. And we're going to go into design view. And it asks us to name the table. So first we're going to name this table student. Okay. And then it goes into field names. And so the field names for this first table are student ID. And so you go in here and see it has it as its primary key. That's what we want. And we want student ID. Okay. And then we're going to press tab and you have to put in the data type. So for student ID, it's not an auto number, but it is a number. And then the next thing you need to put in is first name. And this data type is simply a text, so that's fine. And then you need last name. And that is also just a text. Okay, and so that's really all you need to do to set up the fields for it. And then you go back into data sheet view. Oh, and you have to save it first. And then here, now you can enter in their student IDs. So let's just do Harry's. Would be 111, and then Harry, and last name Potter. Okay, and then you would do that for each of the students. Okay, and so now we're going to create the next tab. So you go to create and table, and then you go back into design view, and we're going to name this table classes. Now the primary key for classes is class ID. So we're going to leave our new class ID. And class ID is an auto number, so we can leave that type. And then the next field is I accidentally did that wrong. The field name for the first one is just ID, and that is auto number. Okay. And then the next field is class ID. My bad. And then this one is class ID is just a number. And then the next field is section number with the hashtag sign or the pound sign. And this is a number. It's not an auto number, just a number. And then the next section is term. And since this one contains number and letters, we're going to use a text type. And then lastly, you have credit hours. And this is a number type. Okay, and so then you change it back to data sheet view and save it. And then you enter in your numbers. So since this is auto, I'm just going to press tab because it's going to auto to 1. And the class ID, oh, okay, so I actually did that wrong, I'm sorry. This is class ID, and the next one was class name or course name, whichever. And so this one is actually short text, and then this class ID is not an auto number, it's just a number. Okay, so now this should all be right. And we go back to datasheet view and save it. And then you can enter in all the course information. So we have that, and then aerobics. And then the section number is 1000. And then the term number for all of these is SP20. And then the credit hour for that class is 1. And you go to the next class. Okay, and you have to do these for all of the classes. And so I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so once you have all that information in, you can save that table and then create the next one. And so you go into design view again and create that table, which is called students and classes. Okay, and then you put in the key again, which is ID, and that is an auto number. And then you put in the class ID. And that field again is just a number. And then student ID is the next one, and that is a number. And then the last one you have is hours studied, and that is a number. And then you can go here into the field properties and change the decimal places from auto, and you put in a 2. I'm going to take out that default value, or not. Okay, so then you can save that and go back into datasheet view. And then this is where you put in all the information again. So I'm going to pause that while I fill it in, and you can fill it in also. Okay, so once you enter in all the information of all the students, their class IDs, and how much time they spent studying for each of those classes, and the ID of each one of those corresponding fields. I only did Harry Potter just now for the conservation of time. And so then you have to define your relationships. And how you do that is you go over here to Database Tools and click on Relationships. And then it asks you to select what tabs, and we're going to select all 3. Okay, and we're going to close this. And we're going to wait which fields are the same. So class ID here in classes is the same as class IDs in students and classes. So we're going to drag those together and create that relationship. And then the same with student ID. We're going to create that relationship. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is solve our questions with query output. So our first question is, how often did Harry Potter study for his classes this semester? So we're going to create that query. So we go to the Create tab up here and create Query Wizard. And then we're going to do the simple query. And so for this, it's easiest if you put in the fields in order of what you want them to appear. So we're going to put in last name, course number, where are you? Oh, not course number, course name. Okay, class name. And then credit hours. And then hours studied, which comes from students and classes. Okay, we're going to click next, and we're going to finish this. Okay, and so if you did this, it will come up with all the names of all the students, but we only want Harry Potter, so we're going to click filter. We're going to, let's see, where'd filter go? Okay, we're going to text filter equals and type in Potter. See, okay, and now only displays Harry Potter, his classes, and the hours he studied. And then you would need to name this. And so to name it, you have to go to the field in the navigation panel. And first you'd have to close the tab by right-clicking and closing, and then go to that table and renaming it from the navigation panel. So now we can move on to question 2. How often should Potter have studied per class? So again, we create a new query and a simple query, and we enter in the same fields: last name, course number, student ID, hours studied, credit hours. And so for this one, we are wanting how often should he have studied. So we're looking at Harry Potter's time studied per class, and is what you should name it. Okay, and so you do that and go into design view. Let's see how we did this. Okay, actually it is Harry Potter required study time. So you enter in all those same fields, and then the required hours. And so to do this, we had to go back into the student and classes tab and add in a section called times, because the required hour per class is 2 times the credit hours per class. So I put in that field so that I could create a query, and then after entering in these fields, I could go into the design view, create a new field in which I named required hours, and then you have to put a colon, and then open bracket credit hours times the times field, which is 2 in all the sections. And so when I ran that, it came up with these required hours for all the classes. And then to see only Harry Potter's, you filter it again, and then it comes up with his required hours. Okay, so now we can move on to question 3. How much additional time should Potter study per class? So you create another query, and you enter in all the same information: the last name, course number, credit hours, hours studied, and then you also enter in the required hours that we found out from the last query. Okay, so you do all that and you create it, and then you go into design view again, and you have to create another field. And so what I did is I named it study time deficiency, just like we did in the last one where we created a new one. And then you put a colon, open parentheses, required hours, close parentheses, minus, open parentheses, students and classes dot hours studied. Now what that does is it tells it where to get hours studied, because hours studied is mentioned now in 2 different tables. So I just put a specific location. And then that calculates how much time Harry Potter needs more in each class. And so you view that and you filter it again to only Harry Potter, and it should come up with the time deficiencies here. And then you move on to the last question, which is overall, how much additional time should Potter study? So then again, you create another query. And this one we are going to name Potter sum total. So again, in this query, you put in the same fields: the last name, sum of credit hours, the sum of hours studied, or credit hours, hours studied, required hours, and then you also put in the time deficiency from the last query. And let me show you how to do this. Okay, so again, when you go to create the query, when you go to the last section of creating the query, it asks, you click on summary and then summary options. And then you click on the sum of all of the credit hours, the hours studied, and the time deficiency. And then you would press OK. Okay, so that's what you have to do to get the sums. And then you create it, and the sums would come up here. Now, our one problem, though, in this database is that we have a lot of redundancy. See here we have aerobics repeated itself, and all these classes repeated itself several times, but we only want that once. And the same in this sum. For some reason we have 5 sums when we should really only have 1.